Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to this special meeting. There's a bit of feedback on this mic already, so someone's clearly... Sorry, we've got some feedback. Can everybody hear me at home? Yeah, is there a bit of feedback on
No. No feedback.
No feedback.
All good.
Okay, cool. Right, so we're just going to crack on anyways. I think it's Councillor Howes has got a problem. Look, sorry again, yeah, good morning everybody. Thank you for coming along this morning. This is a special meeting of the Public Services Committee. Obviously this is going at live stream. I'll go straight into the agenda, but before I do so, I just want to, explain the structure of this meeting. So we've got obviously the committee members who will be speaking first. Then we have our fellow county councillors that will come in afterwards, and that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm going to be pretty liberal, so if there are any kind of questions that you want to go for at the end of it, that's absolutely fine, depending on whether or not our guests here are prepared to obviously answer those questions. So that's pretty much it. First of all, have we got any apologies for absence? I know we've got Francis Taylor. Are there any other apologies for absence? No. Declarations of interest? None? Are we sure? Yeah, okay, good. That's great. That's a great start. And then we've got the public open forum. I believe we have a councillor who wishes to speak in that public open forum. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this. I'm going to introduce our guests first, and then I'm going to ask everybody, before we get into this, to then introduce themselves, if that's all right. Phil, is that okay with you? Yeah? Excellent. So our guests today are, and I'm very grateful they've come along because they don't have to, is Mr. Ian Thompson. He's the Programme Development and Stakeholder. Goodness. It was all going so well, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. All right. That's a cross against you. So we've got, sorry, I apologise, Ian. We've got Mr. Ian Thompson, who's the Programme Development and Stakeholder Relationships Manager for National Highways, and we've got Jonathan Hill, who's the Route Manager and National Highways. I'm going to then, what I'm going to do before we get into this, I'm going to, we have to by statute, don't we, include the public open forum where we get the questions first.
Is this lady? Sorry,
yeah.
Chair.
Yeah.
Because she says my question has been answered, so no longer needs.
Oh, brilliant! Excellent.
Jackie? Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So there is nobody coming in on public open forum. That's absolutely fine. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to introduce ourselves. First of all, so my name is Armand Watts. I'm the chair of the Select Committee. I'm the County Councillor for Thornwell and Bulwark. I share that ward with Councillor Riley. That ward sits alongside New West Farm Estate and the Old Severn Bridge. So clearly I'm quite interested in this subject matter myself. Next to me I have Penny, who's my deputy chair, absolutely fantastic deputy chair. And then I'm going to go to the floor. So we've got Councillor Howells, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, Councillor Marion Howells, for joint ward member for Llanbaddock and Usk, this ward.
Thank you.
Councillor Dale Rook, representing Chepstow Castle and Larkfield wards.
Okay. Have we got, and then we've got Tony Keir.
Yeah, morning everyone. Yeah, Councillor Tony Keir, joint ward member with Marion Howells for Llanbaddock and Usk ward.
Fantastic. Yeah, and then we've got Steve. Morning, Steve. Steve Garrett, Councillor Garrett.
Yeah, Steve Garrett. I'm the county councillor for Overmonnow ward in Monmouth. Okay.
So, and then we've got Jill. Jill Bond, Councillor Bond.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Jill Bond, councillor for West End Caldecott. Of course, in Caldecott we have an industrial estate which is served by heavy goods vehicles to the businesses that reside there. Thank you.
Okay, and we've got Malcolm, Councillor Malcolm Lane. No, he's not with us. No. Okay, and then Sorry, then we've got Lisa Dimmock. I'm going to go visually if everybody else is looking at the same screen. So she's in the top left of my screen, which is Councillor Dimmock from Portskewick. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to join today. I'll substitute Malcolm. I thought Councillor Pavia was joining to substitute him, but yes, I'm County Councillor Lisa Dimmock for Portskewick Ward, and Severnbridge Industrial Estate falls partly in my ward, so I'm here to ask some questions on behalf of businesses that I've been speaking to. Thank you.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. Thank you very much for that. Angela, speak into your mic. Please.
Can you speak into your mic?
Oh, can I speak into my mic? Oh.
Very soft voice.
I've got a soft voice.
Yes, you have.
I've never heard that before. And then we've got Jackie Strong, Councillor Strong from Caldecott.
Hi, I'm not a member of this committee, but I'm really concerned about the impact that any changes will be having to both businesses and residents. So I represent Caldecott Cross Ward down on Severn side. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We've got Paul Pavier. Paul, in what capacity are you here today then? Are you here as a guest, or are you filling in for something? Because
I'm a formal substitute for Councillor Malcolm Lane, Chair. I think I'm agendaed as so.
Okay, brilliant. Okay.
But I'm also the elected member for Mount Pleasant Ward, and I've got the High Beach roundabout in my ward. So
you have indeed. Thank you. Yeah, you have indeed. And then we've got Councillor Birch, Cabinet Member.
Thank you, Chair, for the invitation to attend today. Councillor Sarah Birch, Cantref Ward in Abergavenny, not a ward directly affected, but of course the whole county and the whole surrounding area is affected by this, and also in my Cabinet role interested in the effect on rural businesses.
Okay, then we've got Cabinet Member Ian Chandler.
Yeah, hi, I'm Ian Chandler, so I'm ward member for Llantilio Cresceni Ward in north of Monmouthshire, and Cabinet member for social care.
Fantastic, thank you. And Emma Bryn, hi.
Hi, Councillor Emma Bryn, not a member of this committee, but I'm not directly affected in my ward, but like everyone else is, everyone with a business in their ward has some kind of, will be affected in some description, so I'm interested in learning more, and thank you for letting us attend today. Diolch.
Okay, I'm going to come back to Catherine because she's one of our guests this morning. And we've got Councillor Strong from Caldecott.
Hi, Pete Strong, County Councillor for Roggett, which of course is neatly squeezed between the M4 and the M48.
Fantastic.
Here as an observer today.
Thank you, Peter. And then Alistair. Good morning, Alistair.
Good morning, Chair. I'm Alistair Neal, County Councillor for Gobian Bar, and like every other councillor here, we've got a tremendous interest in what is one of the principal arterial routes between ourselves and England, so thank you for allowing us.
No, you're very, very welcome. And then we've got Phil Murphy.
Hi, thank you, Chair. Councillor Phil Murphy, member for Cowent, which is not directly affected, but very, very close to everybody else.
Councillor Sue McConnell.
Thank you, Chair. Sue McConnell, I'm the County Councillor for Crossonnan in Abergavenny, not directly affected, but like everybody else, interested and concerned.
Thank you. Louise, good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Louise Brown, I represent Shire Newton Ward, which is very close to Chepstow, and I'm concerned about the impact on the High Beach roundabout, yes, which is already congested, and the A48 Pulmeric, which is part of my ward.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Riley.
Hi, I'm Sue Riley. I'm a joint councillor with yourself, Chair, in Bulwark and Thornwell. Not a member of the committee, but with a huge interest in this for my ward members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. And then Councillor John Crook.
Yeah, good morning. John Crook from Mega East and Undy, which is going to be affected dramatically and has been affected over the past of the shutting of the Severn Bridge.
Smashing. And then we've got Angela. Good morning, Angela. Councillor Sanders.
Good morning, Councillor Angela Sanders, Joint Ward Member for Mega East and Undy, which is hugely impacted with congestion, with extra traffic that comes down from Chepstow. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning. Right, and then we've got, I can see this online, back to online, we've got Jackie Atkin as well. Am I right in thinking, Jackie, you're from Monmouth, aren't you?
Yeah, Jackie Atkin, attending on behalf of Monmouth Town Council, not directly impacted, but as everyone else in this room, deeply concerned in the wider impact for businesses, etc.
Fantastic. Then we've got Debbie Hill-Howes. Morning, Deborah. There in the corner.
Morning, I'm the Interim Chief Officer for Infrastructure. Thank you.
Fantastic. And then we'd like to welcome as well Catherine Maybe. She is in her capacity as the Cabinet Member for Transport and Highways. I probably got that title slightly wrong. Good morning, Catherine.
Morning. Yeah, I'm a Drybridge, Monmouth County Councillor. Climate change and environment is my cabinet role, but that includes transport planning and highways. So obviously this is a matter of huge concern to me as well. So thanks for inviting me. Cheers.
No, amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to allow our witnesses...
Chair, you've missed...
Sorry, Francis Taylor online, County Councillor for Mega. I won't go into why we're affected, but we are. The interchange is in my ward. Thank you.
I do apologise, Francis. I had apology for it, and then you popped out at the blue, so I felt blindsided. And then there you are. But you're very welcome anyway.
There's Councillor Edwards as well.
And Councillor Edwards. Thank you, Dale. Good morning, Councillor Edwards. If you'd like to introduce yourself. Okay, maybe not. Okay. Right, so, as I was saying, we've got our witnesses here today, Mr. Thompson and Mr. Hill. What I'm going to allow them to do is take control of the floor now. They're going to give us their intro explanation, and then we're going to fire in some questions then from the committee. Good morning, gentlemen. The floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for introducing me. My name is Ian Thompson from National Highways. Southwest, operates out of Aztec West, just where the M4 meets the M5. Just a little bit of introduction and background. National Highways is a government-owned corporation. There's one shareholder who is the Secretary of State for Transport, Heidi Alexander. Our role on behalf of the DFT is to operate and maintain and improve England's strategic road network. That network is 4,500 miles of motorway and trunk roads linking cities, airports and ports. We carry 3% of England's roads, carrying 1/3 of all traffic and 2/3 of all freight. We're responsible for over 20,000 structures. And just when we look at the southwest, which is the area that our region roughly covers from Tewkesbury all the way down to Penzance, includes the 7 bridges and down to the south coast. It's 621 miles, made up of over 2,217 structures. So we'll move on to the 7 bridges. First of all, and very specifically the M48. So as all of you will be aware, it was designed in the 1950s, 1960s, and opened to traffic in 1966. The structure was strengthened in the 1980s, but not the main cable. It's important this bridge was originally designed to carry traffic, or HGVs, lorries, commercial traffic, weighing around 22 tonnes. And specifically that weight has now increased, as we're all aware, to 44-tonne trucks, HGVs. And for instance, since we the government lifted the tolls in December 2018, the traffic levels on the M48 bridge have increased by 34%. So we regularly inspect a strict inspection regime in relation to all of our structures, in fact all of our network. This is a specialist bridge and the cable inspection regime commenced in 2006. That was repeated in 2010, 2016 and 2023. So the main cable that stretches each side of the bridge is actually made up of 8,322 individual 5mm cables, steel cables, galvanised wires. During the course of those inspections, we found rust and deterioration on those cables, and we mitigated that by by ensuring the cables are kept as dry as possible with a dehumidification system. And acoustic monitoring, so if any of those cables do snap or snap, we know it's happened and we know roughly where it's happened on the bridge. So in 22-23 we did cable inspection number 4, and during that cable inspection we discovered that there had been further deterioration of the cables, a lot of snapped cables. And we then took those cables away and conducted with our supply chain partners, which was independently verified by a third-party source, that the actual strength of the cables, the samples that we took away, suggested that these cables had weakened, and that obviously raised concerns over the future of the bridge. So once all that analytical work had been complete, that was presented to us, and we subsequently presented that information to the Department for Transport. So remember, we manage and operate. The structure itself is owned by government. Presented those facts, and it became apparent to us that we needed to find a way of reducing the load on those cables. Is the bridge safe to operate? At the moment, yes it is, but if we don't remove weight and load from the bridge, we will see a further deterioration and weakening of the structure. So that caused us to make a operational safety decision. So it's made on the case of safety, it's not negotiable. And that was what was detailed to government. So we had two options. Eventually got down to two options on how we were going to reduce the weight on the bridge and the load on those cables specifically. The first option we considered was to reduce the lanes on the bridge down to one operational lane. That was discounted for two reasons, as it did not reduce the weight on the load or the load on the bridge on the cables significantly, and as we know from when we were doing the cable inspections in 22 and 23, the congestion that caused in the Chepstow and surrounding area was not acceptable, and it's not something we wish to repeat. So we then consulted with our experts, our engineers, and considered that the most viable option to protect the future of the bridge, and let's make this clear, if we don't take this action, we will end up in the bridge having to close to all traffic, which again is not something that we wish to have to enforce. So the recommendation came that the best way to protect the integrity of the bridge and allow its future continued use was to remove HGVs from the bridge in excess of 7.5 tonnes. That is being done by a temporary traffic restriction order, often referred to as a TTRO, and it's very specific to HGVs in excess of 7.5 tonnes. Obviously, we're aware of the challenges that presents the haulage industry, and I will point out that we are allowing other vehicles across the bridge in excess of 7.5 tonnes. They're not exempt, they're just not included in the TTRO, and that is buses and coaches are allowed over because there's far fewer than them, and they weigh around 20 to 22 tonnes fully loaded. We're also allowing recovery trucks for obvious reasons. We may need to recover a stricken vehicle upon the bridge. We're allowing our winter treatment vehicles, commonly referred to as gritters, across the bridge for obvious reasons, and also blue light vehicles, namely fire engines. And again, they're all there as necessary to be able to access the bridge. So when we look at the bridge, there's the traffic data we have is the average number of vehicles on a daily basis that use the bridge is just about 32,000, of which 10% are HGVs in excess of 7.5 tonnes. When we look at that 10%, so that 3,200 lorries that use the bridge every day, that actually represents 2.7% of the total traffic across both structures. Once this decision was made, it's obviously presented to the DFT, and there was very early engagement with the Welsh Government. They were the first organisation we spoke to, and we were subject of embargo by government. We weren't in a position to consult because this was a safety engineering operational decision. So there was no consultation, and we were subject to that embargo. However, when that embargo was lifted on the 10th of April, we mounted a well-planned stakeholder and public liaison and information briefing exercise, and that included briefing in the first couple of days, a total of 33 members of the Senate and MPs, 7 councils and highway authorities, 3 police forces, 2 freight authorities, so that's the Road Haulage Association and Logistics UK, various business organisations such as Severnet and Suscom, Transport Focus, both at director and regional representative levels. We spoke to the owners and operators of Newhouse Farm, and we spoke to individual hauliers. In addition to that, we sent out 4,500 postcards to hauliers and PSV operators in the region on both sides of the Bristol Channel. That was quite an extensive operation, and that was directing people to our website. It has comprehensive Q&A, question and answers information on that website, where people have requested meetings. So a lot of those information that went out came with invites for meetings, and whenever a meeting was requested, we have gone and met those individuals or organisations and provided them with an in-depth briefing. So we look at the impacts of this decision, and again, it's one of those decisions that's not negotiable. Say it's not a consultation, it's an engagement to say what is happening. We are now working very closely with the South Wales Trunks Road Agency, the Welsh Government, Monmouthshire, Newport, and authorities on the English side of the bridge to look at the mitigations, and to understand what they are going to be. And of course, we now meet on a weekly basis with those organisations and any parties, parties that want to come to those meetings. That includes some of the MSs. To provide updates, and then looking at the impacts, which are going to be obviously at 23A at Magor. So National Highways are working with Monmouthshire and Sutra to look at how we can improve the flow through that roundabout. Also, the impacts in Chepstow itself with the flow of lorries, and working closely with Newhouse Farm. That work will be ongoing. Whilst we are looking at what mitigations we can put in place, engineering mitigations to return HGVs to the bridge. Firstly, in the next 12 to 18 months, we are looking to introduce a technological solution on the M48 bridge, which will allow us to facilitate HGVs in excess of 7.5 tonnes to cross the bridge, but under our control, and that is to manage the weight on the bridge. If we put too many on at once, we'll continue to see a deterioration of the cables. So that should come within the next 18 months, and we're working with our partners, including Monmouthshire officers, to achieve that mitigation. In the longer term, and it is fairly groundbreaking engineering, we are looking at how we are going to strengthen the cables that are upon the bridge. It's a big challenge. You all know the structure very well, the height of the structure, the magnitude of the structure, and the task that our engineers and our supply chain face to achieve that. And we will be turning to colleagues around the world. There's obviously an expert structural inspection sort of community, or structural engineering community that will assist us with that. Now, timeframes for that are looking at optimistically around 5 years plus. We don't know how that's going to be done at the moment, so we're looking at the feasibility of strengthening those cables. The estimated cost in current terms of achieving the engineering, the hard engineering, strengthening those cables, in current terms is somewhere between 300 to 600 million pound. And that obviously will form part of our future funding at National Highways, and the DFT are very well briefed on the magnitude of that task that's ahead of us. You'll be aware at the moment there are some renewal works ongoing on the Prince of Wales Bridge, and we're looking to, at the moment, review that work, again, to lessen the impact of those works and return all lanes as soon as practicable to allow a greater efficiency of moving vehicles across the Prince of Wales Bridge. You'll also be aware that on the Bristol side of the structure, we've got the M49 that feeds onto the Prince of Wales, where a junction was constructed by National Highways some years ago, and again we're working with South Gloucester Council, who have the responsibility of now joining that junction, linking that junction to the local road network, and that work is about to start now and should take around 12 months to complete. In short, we've undertaken, in response to this unavoidable position, an extensive both stakeholder and public briefing and liaison exercise. We're working closely in partnership with the right organisations, including Monmouthshire, and we are looking to introduce those mitigations as soon as practicable. We do fully understand the impact and the concerns, and that's why we're working in partnership with all of these organisations, and in some cases individual hauliers. Is there anything you need to add, John? Thank you.
Johnny, have you got anything to say, or?
No, I think we're happy to open the floor.
Very wise. So, right, how this is going to work is I'm going to ask Deborah to explain, first of all, so far, because I understand you've met them with some of the cabinet, what we're, how we've responded as an authority. I guess the reason I'm trying to do that is so we don't get into duplication from cabinet members and so on and so forth, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you, Councillor Watts. As an authority, since we were notified by National Highways, our Highways colleagues have been working with National Highways. We've also been liaising with Welsh Government and Sutra. We have concerns over the impact on Junction 23A, and we are responsible for the road, the roundabout. We're working with WG at the moment in an attempt to get the heave resolved on that roundabout and get the works resurfaced, or get the road resurfaced prior to the changes. We are also attending weekly meetings with National Highways to attempt to mitigate the impact, but the reality is, has just been explained, the safety impact means that we have to find ways of mitigating it. We cannot stop what needs to happen. The other thing we are also doing is lobbying Welsh Government as regards the proposal for a new link from the M48 to the B4245. We believe that would absolutely help in reducing the amount of traffic that actually needs to go on to the junction 25A. If we could get that new link road, that would assist with that. And we are also waiting for a response from TfW and Welsh Government as regards the impact on the works, the studies being done, the WellTag studies at High Beach Roundabout, because again, we now believe that will significantly impact the change in direction of traffic and the work that has been done to date on WellTag 2. So we continue to liaise, we continue to lobby, and we will continue to work with National Highways to try and find a way to mitigate the impact of these changes to our residents and to our businesses.
No, thank you for that. That's very interesting. Catherine, so we're going to, this is going to be a fairly easygoing kind of friendly meeting, I promise you. Would you like to say anything at this moment in time, or will you rather wait for the questions to come in from the committee before you answer any questions? Obviously, you may want to come back at some later stage. It's entirely up to you. Have you got anything to say?
Thanks, Councillor Watts. Yeah, I mean, Deborah Hill-Howells has set out the position fairly clearly. We're really conscious of how difficult the situation is, both around Chepstow and at the junction near Mega already, and so we're really concerned about the additional impacts, and also the logistics hub over at Newhouse Farm and the impact on the local economy. So I think probably one of the big questions for us in terms of data and trying to prepare for this and trying to prepare for how we can mitigate is some knowledge around how HGV drivers might react when they're having to use the other bridge. How many of them will be continuing on into other parts of South Wales? How many of them might be wanting to double back? As I think you've raised yourself, Councillor Watts, the impact on Chepstow, people then not coming to Chepstow who might have wanted to come to Chepstow. So the traffic flow data around that whole area is something that we really would like more help with and more understanding of. The intricacies of how the roads interact are already a serious problem. So anything, I mean, in a way, if we're trying to look for any positives around this, is working more closely with National Highways and with Sutra to try and solve these issues, because there already is a problem, as we know, with congestion and traffic flow in this whole area. Thank you.
No, brilliant. Thank you very much. That's interesting. Lisa and Paul, just to set, so obviously we've got some pre-scripted, we've organised ourselves, right? So we've got some questions, as you remember, when you've run select committees. So I don't know what your questions are, so I'm going to bring in, Jill wants to come in first, but I've got a list of questions here which kind of started with, is that all right, Jill, that we stick to the script? So effectively I've got Dale, then I've got Marianne, then I've got Jill, and then I've got Penny, and then who knows what happens after that. Dale.
Thank you, Chair. My first question is about tachographs. The additional journey that will have to be made if they're coming back to Chepstow is 40 minutes each way. How do you intend managing tachographs for deliveries to Chepstow? And the next question I have is, we have the M5 comes to Gloucester. Gloucester traffic will get off, come down the A48 through Lydney, through Chepstow. How do you intend mitigating that effect? Thank you.
So what you're effectively asking there is about rerouting, right, Dale? Yeah, okay, lovely.
Yeah, tachographs is a very interesting subject that's been brought up by hauliers. It's a 14-mile diversion if vehicles are seeking to travel from one side to the other via the Prince of Wales Bridge. The subject of tachographs is one of the reasons why we've liaised so closely with the haulage industry and made the announcement way ahead, as far as we practically could make ahead of the enforcement coming into place on the 27th of May. So in order to try and assist those hauliers, we've given them the maximum amount of time possible. So we're not an enforcement agency, but by giving the, as soon as the embargo was lifted, that's why the postcards went out, to allow these organisations, these hauliers and other companies operating HGVs, time to consider their logistics of when their vehicles move, when they need to move, how they're moving, what route they're taking, to limit the impact on drivers' hours, tachographs and the risks that come with that.
Dale, have you got a supplementary?
Well, the other question was around coming off at the M5 junction at Gloucester, down the A48 up to Hardwick roundabout. How do you intend mitigating the increase in HGVs coming through Chepstow, which is a one road in, one road out town? How would you intend mitigating the impact of HGVs on the local network?
So I think in essence this is now a response to Catrin, Deborah and Newdale. We're currently undertaking a significant modelling exercise on the impacts and the disbursement. We're very aware that there will be impacts on Magor and Chepstow. So we're looking at the data we've got, where those vehicles are likely to go and what the impacts will be, and then we'll carry on working with Sutra and Monmouthshire to manage that risk. So it's a work in progress at the moment, but once we have the further detail on that, we're happy to report that back to you.
Okay. Dale, are you satisfied? Can I move on now? Yeah, thank you. Marion, your questions, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks, gents. Yeah, my question was, you've identified about 3,200 HGVs crossing the bridge every day. Have you worked out directly how many of those vehicles would be directly affected to Chepstow, for the Chepstow area? So, are we, is it a ballpark figure sort of thing? Is it a few hundred, or, because obviously some of them, those lorries, the 3,200, will be carrying on further into West Wales or back from other areas. My second question is, are there contingency plans for the if the M4 Prince of Wales Bridge is closed as well? And how will the enforcement of the changes be managed, particularly for lorries of different weights? And will local businesses be supported if they incur further charges due to any changes?
Thank you, Councillor Howells. So the modelling work will tell us where those vehicles are going. Now, obviously, we've got Newhouse Farm, another fairly significant distribution sites. That work is ongoing, and we will see some lorries, for instance, that are travelling, that would have gone across the M48 and then travelled M5 north, will consider other routes along approved diversionary routes, no doubt managed by Sutra. But again, we're working closely with Sutra and Monmouthshire to map out where those vehicles are going and where those points will be. When the M4 Prince of Wales Bridge is closed, it will obviously close for two reasons. Maintenance. It's a structure in a hostile environment, much like the M48 bridge. We've accelerated some of that maintenance ahead of these restrictions to limit the impact through the year. During planned closures, we will operate a system, so we have to put the resources in place where we will allow HGVs in excess of 7.5 tonnes to travel over the M48, but in a controlled manner. When there is and that will be overnight, closures where we typically see less traffic and a greater concentration of HGVs as a percentage of traffic crossing the bridge, but we'll have that operation in place. In relation to unplanned closures, so these are incident-led closures, perhaps a collision on the bridge or a significant broken down vehicle or a vehicle fire or something like that. We will work with, obviously, the Blue Light Services and our partners to get that incident cleared as quickly as possible, as we always do. But we are looking at then having to use the approved diversionary route, which is the route that goes up to the M50, unfortunately. However, we don't see a great deal of such incidents on the bridge. They're a fairly low percentage compared to the rest of the network. As far as enforcement is concerned of these restrictions, which I think was your question, Councillor Howells, we're working with the police forces responsible for policing the bridge and the DVSA around enforcement on the bridge. We'll be looking at a technological solution which will be ANPR-led. but there will be police enforcement and DVSA enforcement of the weight restrictions on the M48 bridge. And could you remind me of your final question?
Will local businesses be supported if they incur further charges due to the changes?
So we're supporting with continued information and communication, but unfortunately businesses financially impacted have no right of compensation from National Highways.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks.
It's very interesting. Thank you. Have you got any supplementaries?
No, I'm happy with that. Thanks very much.
Excellent questions. Jill, your turn. Before you start, though, sorry, Jill. So just to let Steve, I think Steve come in. Steve, so I know you've all got questions. I've got a list of questions. Yeah, we're going to come to you. So we haven't forgot. You are obviously still a very important member of this committee, Steve. All right. Excellent. Jill.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I understand it must be an absolute nightmare to try and deal with this issue. Can I check, first of all, that you said 12 to 18 months? Is that a realistic estimation? I guess you don't know yet, depending on the issues you find and how you're able to solve them. And did you say that the anticipated long-term solution is to control HGVs ongoing? So that's the first question. Second question is, with the M4 bridge, Prince of Wales Bridge, is it capable of withstanding the additional HGVs that will be going across there due to the M48 bridge being closed, or to them? And another question, is there any chance of compensation? I think you mentioned it a little bit there, to the businesses affected, and you're working with them, and I understand you are. And the last one is, I'm really pleased to hear that we are lobbying, and we all are, for the a junction on the M48 between Caldecott and Roggett, which will alleviate a lot of the disrupting congestion and everything, even now before this issue, for a link road. And I wonder, I know this is pie in the sky possibly, I wonder what opportunity there is to consider very longer term, I guess, putting more freight back on the trains, and perhaps encouraging Welsh Government's help with that junction, but also considering environmentally improvement by using trains for freight. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill.
Slightly testing my memories. 12 to 18 months, yes, we feel that's a realistic time frame. That is the mid-term solution. So we've got the short-term solution, which is the weight restriction, then the medium-term solution, which is management of vehicles, likely with a technological solution. That's your 12 to 18-month period. And then the longer-term solution is the cable augmentation that Ian referred to. M4, yes, capable of taking the vehicles we refer to. I think we've covered off the compensation question, haven't we? So yeah, we'll continue to engage with hauliers in the area, but compensation is not available. And then the freight on the rail is part of a wider strategic question. So we'll continue to engage with the rail industry on a wider than just this issue. So I can't make any commitments in that space at the moment, but we are actively engaged with the rail sector.
Okay, can I just come back on that one, please?
Yes,
of course.
So when you said the cable augmentation will be the longer term solution, you're expecting ultimately for HGVs to be able to go back on the M48 bridge?
That's subject to all the usual caveats around funding, but that is the proposed long-term solution.
Thank you very much.
Oh, that's very interesting. Thank you. Penny, you've got a couple of questions.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I can thank you so much for the presentation. I mean, we realise it's an incredibly difficult and complicated procedures that are going on at present. But I just wondered, has a risk assessment and a contingency plan linked to the economic impact been carried out or been undertaken? And that's one thing. And how can we protect and support businesses? But I think we'll probably leave that one. Just one other thing I'd like to add. after your presentation, the renewal works on the Prince of Wales Bridge lesson to complete. You're going to ask them to be completed as soon as possible, so it will lessen the problems with transport. But is that realistic? And is there a time scale, please? Because it's, are they going to say, oh yes, we'll finish in a year, or are you asking for something really that will benefit us?
Thank you, Councillor Jones. So regarding the risk assessment and contingency plan, so we said this was a safety and operational decision. This is something that we had to do, and that has left us now working with our partners to try and limit the impact on businesses and the region, and specifically Monmouthshire. So at this time, no, there has been no risk assessment plan, because this was. It's very similar. If there was a major incident on the motorway, safety-wise, we have to shut it. So it's a much bigger version of that. It's an operational safety decision. So we haven't had the opportunity or been required to complete that risk assessment on the economic impact.
Can I just come back on that one? Will it be monitored? Will the situation be monitored?
We are going to carry on working as we do. We're meeting all of the required, or all of the organisations that we need to meet with on a weekly basis, and we are very keen on working closely with them. As it's classic partnership working. We understand there's going to be an impact, and where we need to make these adjustments, if we can make them, we will make them.
Thank you.
Just returning to the Prince of Wales Bridge works, that is very much ongoing, that assessment at the moment, as to how we can bring those or accelerate those works, or look at some of the works that could be delayed potentially, and we'll be in a position to report that in due course. And I think Johnny wants to come in there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we've postponed the eastbound resurfacing on the M4, so that should have gone into contraflow in early May, but due to our liaison with hauliers and particularly abnormal loads operators, we've gone back to 3 lanes eastbound with 70 mile an hour back in place from 8th of May.
Right, okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Francis, I think Francis is with us somewhere. I can't physically see her. Is she with us, Francis? Are you there?
Travelling, isn't she?
I am. Sorry, I'm just, I'm kind of on the move, Chair, so
Okay.
I've just had to try.
That's right. I can't see anything whizzing by the back of you there. No, there's no.
No, I'm not
trees
moving. I am static, but I'm just not in a at home.
Okay, lovely, brilliant.
Okay. So thank you, Chair. Thanks for. I'm sorry I couldn't join your pre-meeting. I know that a couple of people, including Captain, have mentioned Junction 23 mega interchange, but I think it's really important that we understand. I mean, Deb's mentioned potential resurfacing, but I really would like us to understand more what the options are in terms of minimising disruption to local residents and businesses. And I think having some concrete proposals would be exceptionally helpful. And so I'd really like to know what the thinking is, please. And then to kind of supplement that, as we've already said, when the 7 crossings are closed due to adverse weather or incidents, mainly adverse weather, it has to be said, the area is completely gridlocked and brought to a standstill. And my concern is that this will further aggravate a clearly already difficult situation. Has consideration been given to long-term traffic management on the interchange, such as traffic lights, permanent traffic lights, because it is utterly ridiculous to think that, forgive me, but this is not an unforeseen issue. A 34% increase in traffic since the tolls were removed. That's to be predicted. So I'd like, and then I've got one further question, if I may. Thank you.
Francis, so just for I don't know, kind of continuity, do you want to just throw in that other question as well?
Okay, I will. So my other question after that. So I've heard some talk of potential other road-based options. Looking into those now. But and I'm kind of disappointed that we might not be, Jill mentioned it. I think it was a very good suggestion. But given the likely long-term restrictions on freight and the increase in congestion, has consideration been given to modal shift and securing alternative, delivering the new stations on the main line, and in particular, Mega Walkway Station? Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you. Gentlemen.
So I think the Mega interchange piece comes back to the modelling, so we need to be evidence-led as to what the impacts look like. Obviously that is the approved diversion route for closure of the M48, so we know it can take the traffic it does, albeit with the impacts you mention. So we will continue to engage with Monmouthshire and Sutra, particularly once that modelling is returned, to look at what the impact looks like and therefore what solutions could potentially be implemented. So that is very much work in progress, which we will look to feed back on as soon as we're able to. When you reference traffic signals, is that on Mega interchange as well?
Yes, and also, you know, when the bridge is closed, I don't understand why we don't have some better means of traffic management, even if there were temporary lights or temporary signalling, because it is ridiculous. And I'm afraid, you know, apologies, but the response you've just given there, where we're looking at modelling, we already know the impact. Why we haven't been collecting data to now, I don't understand. But you know, it clearly doesn't happen every day. But I think the day after this was announced, the bridge was closed, and the whole area is brought to a complete and utter standstill. So while you say the interchange can take the traffic, well, no, it can't, and Mega with Dundee and all the communities along that route can't either. And I think that it's not really doesn't pass muster. You know, this is a national government problem. I appreciate that, but we have to have solutions, and those solutions are probably not, you know, one-trick horse. You know, this was known. There are clearly lots of unintended consequences of removal of the tolls, and we're not here to discuss that, but this is one of them. This was predictable, 7-8 years ago. So I don't buy that we're now still looking at modelling. I'm afraid I think we need to do that faster. Thank you.
Thanks, Francis.
So signalisation of Mega roundabout, if that was sorry, I've just seen you've come off mute. You're good. Signalisation.
Sorry, I was going to say I'm not a traffic expert at all, clearly, but I just wonder why because there's no measures, there's nothing, so I don't know if that's, you know, a possible solution that would ameliorate the flow. Thank you.
So that is obviously not National Highways Network. So we would have to work with Monmouthshire and Sutra and be confident that whatever was being brought in was a suitable intervention for that. So we do need to be evidence-led. We do need to make sure we fully understand the numbers and the traffic displacement of such measures that we're bringing in. That work is due to report very soon, and as soon as it does, we will continue. Like I said, we are meeting weekly with both Monmouthshire and Sutra to look towards the implementation period. And then there'll be a period post-implementation of looking at, yes, you've got the modelled impact, but what is the impact in practice, and what does that look like? So it's all about those staggered interventions. I think your third question was on modal shift, wasn't it? So yeah, I think, like I said, that comes back into a wider national piece. So we regularly liaise with rail providers. We will look at that. It's out of our realms as to bring in the stations you mentioned, but we are always looking at the bigger national picture and displacement and what modes freight is using and how that can best be managed. So it's a much wider conversation than the one we're in at the moment, but it is one we as organisations are engaged on.
Thank you, but I think it's an important question for the council and for, you know, yourselves, as whilst I appreciate you're not the deliverer of such matters, but I think this is further evidence of the requirements of overshift. Thank you.
Yeah, at this point, Deborah Hill-Hales wants to come in. Deborah.
Thanks very much. I just wanted to pick up on some of the points Councillor Taylor made. In terms of modal shift, as you'll be aware, the new station is part of the Burns work, as is the B4255 M48 link road. All of those came out of the recommendations from the South East Wales Commission. We continue to work with Simon Gibson and the Burns Group to ensure that gets delivered. We have been lobbying UK government on that aspect. We understand a decision will be made as soon as the outcome of the spending review is known. Our proposals factor highly in those considerations, but it will all be down to funding. But we will continue to lobby that, and we will continue to promote MEGA in isolation if the remainder of those proposals cannot be delivered, because we completely understand that modal shift is one element of the solutions that need to be implemented as part of the consequences of this work. So we are looking at that. And in terms of signalisation, just to reassure you, they are part of the solutions that highways officers are currently working on with Sutra. As has been mentioned, we're waiting for the outcome of the data, but looking at signalisation both from the Newport direction and from the Bristol direction is one of those solutions that are currently being considered.
Francis, I'm going to be very generous. Do you want to come back on that? Francis.
Just on the point of, I appreciate all of that, and I know that we're all doing our best, but it just seems to me that some of this is predictable, and I appreciate what Deb says, and I know it's not all in our gift. But ultimately, those Burns delivery recommendations were made in, I can't remember now, it's like 20, a long time ago anyway, and we haven't seen any of them implemented as far as I can tell to date. So it would be good to see something.
Thank you all, thank you. Steve, you're next up.
Thank you, Chair. Based up in Monmouth, obviously we're fair way away from this, but we have got a couple of issues. We've got the A40 Lees Bend rockfall that is now slated to be fixed over the winter. So I wanted to kind of just ask about what mitigation you'll have in place, what modelling you'll be doing to review that. The issue we got is drivers coming from Gloucester, the A40, they sometimes might decide the A4136 is a slightly quicker road, but at the bottom end of that we've got Staunton Hill, which has got its own issues with we've just got money, Monmouthshire, to do further investigatory work on that, but that's used heavily by goods vehicles, and any further increase in goods vehicles would be serious for us. And then we've got the Wye Bridge, which is being resurfaced at the moment, but that is an issue. We recently had a lorry breakdown there, and then last Friday we had a motorcycle accident as well at Raglan, which then caused knock-on effects back down to Monmouth and beyond. So really just to remind you that Monmouth is a strategic area. It will be impacted by this, and what will you better do with hauliers and the behaviour of drivers to make sure they drive responsibly and don't kind of increase risks on other routes like the A4136, which is being used heavily by goods vehicles and is vulnerable. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. So I think we've got Councillor Pavier next, standing in. It says on my notes here, as Malcolm. So I don't know what that means really, whether I expect you to kind of turn out in the dog collar and everything, drive in somewhere. I have no idea, but the floor is yours, Paul.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks Ian and Jonathan for coming and providing us with some context. As I said at the start of the meeting, the High Beach roundabout is in my ward and is likely to be significantly impacted by the changes that are and proposals have been put forward, especially if HGVs are diverted into alternative routes like the A48 through the town. I think Councillor Rook alluded to that in his question. Jonathan said, you said about modelling is being undertaken, but I think Deb Howe's referenced the well-tagged work that the Sutra and Welsh Government are doing. So I think we've got a significant amount of traffic modelling data that's been recently undertaken. So I hope Welsh Government and Sutra will be sharing that with you, and you won't be starting from scratch to allow you to undertake that work. But I think another important impact is in relation to air quality and noise, and obviously that section from the top of the High Beach roundabout down a good section into the town is in an air quality management zone, and has been for many years. And obviously residents are impacted by the air quality that's there. Has any air quality impact assessments been undertaken, or will they be undertaken as part of the assessment process? Obviously, Sutra have got a number of monitoring stations along that section. I'm just wondering if additional stations are required, or whether or not those other stations will need to be upgraded at all. Obviously, that's a discussion between you and Sutra, but hopefully you'll take that up in relation to future discussions with them. The other issue for us as elected members is the monitoring of the air pollution. So we meet periodically, I think it's only twice a year, to monitor the impact of air pollution on that section of road. If these changes are going to be introduced, I think it's only fair for us to get more regular data summaries, because the data that we have is past data, and that the analysis is done in retrospect. So I think it really is important for us to have a regular sight of updated data in relation to air pollution and what what impact these changes may have. And finally, Chair, in relation to infrastructure and resilience, and I know we're looking at changes to High Beach. But one of the other issues along the Newport Road and Hardwick Hill and Mount Pleasant is about the current state of repair of the road. I only recently, probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, submitted further inquiries to Sutra, because there are further potholes and road wear and tear, and this is only going to have an acceleration on that. Sutra were very honest. They came back and said thank you very much, but we haven't got the money to do anything about it. So I think it'd be only fair for National Highways to look at the structural resilience of that M48 road and look to put in some money to get the road repaired before these changes are introduced. So I think I'll leave that there, Chair, and if I've got further questions, I'll let other members come in, and then I'll come in at the end. Thanks.
No, you're welcome to come back with a supplementary there, Paul. Excellent questions, gentlemen.
Thank you, Councillor Pavia. What we will be doing in those weekly meetings with specifically Monmouthshire and Sutra, you're right to have those, or bring up the air quality management area there. That will be introduced to those meetings. Obviously, they're not our managing our stations are to measure the quality of the air at those locations, but they will now be included in those weekly meetings, as will the impact on local roads, and we'll take that forward for consideration as to how we can work with Sutra and Monmouthshire to reduce that impact. Not promising any funding at this stage, because I'm not in a position to do so, but those two concerns you have there will be eked out of those meetings, and then will be taken away for consideration.
Thank you. Paul, have you got a supplementary? Sorry, Paul, have you got a supplementary?
Thanks, Chair. I think residents, particularly on that top section of Newport Road, will be concerned about the increase in traffic and traffic flows and the mitigation the pollution that'll come and flow from that. I suppose. And I know you said in terms of the operational changes were made because of safety and they had to be introduced. But in terms of understanding any mitigation plans and any rerouting, will there be opportunity for residents to have a say in any of that? Will they be consulted in that? Will they have an opportunity to submit suggestions? Whether that's through Monmouthshire County Council or Sutra, but I think it would be welcome if they could have that opportunity to submit suggestions.
Yeah, that mechanism exists more for engagement per se than consultation. But that should naturally continue to happen through escalation to yourselves as councillors and then across to us as an organisation. So yeah, we are more than happy to hear the thoughts of the residents. Obviously the formal diversion route is via the M4 rather than via High Beach Roundabout, but we're aware of those unintended consequences. So yes, the corridors of communication exist, and we would urge people to use them by yourselves.
Okay, thank you. So we've got Tony Kerr up next, then it's me, and then I know everybody's been very patient, you're looking very eager. I'm going to bring you guys in. So, Councillor Kerr.
Thanks very much, Chair, and yeah, thank you very much for the presentation and the answers to the detailed questions that have been given so far. I've just got a couple from my perspective, whether I've missed this or not. The cost, I think you mentioned, was between 300 and 600 million pounds for potential repairs. At this stage, and forgive me if I've missed this, is there a commitment from Welsh Government that this will be undertaken at whatever cost it may be? I may appreciate that's quite a varied figure in that regard. Second question, in relation to the existing works on the Prince of Wales Bridge, I think you referred to potential modifications of that work. Does that mean speeding up the work, or does it mean less work to accommodate the changes? And I appreciate you mentioned about the modelling of where the HGVs may or may not go. We here in Usk have got a problem with HGVs illegally using the main road and causing also infrastructure damage as well. So we'd be keen to understand whether or not any potential modelling would affect our town as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. So, just to make it clear around the operation and the ownership of the 7 crossings, they belong to the DFT. So, whilst they'll work with the Welsh Government, any funding for that will come through the DFT, ultimately government. We have no commitment at the moment from the DFT other than an understanding that the bridge needs to be strengthened. So that engineering assessment, that feasibility work is underway at the moment, and that will then suggest how much funding will be required to bring that mitigation. And as that process continues, we will keep you updated. But it's in short, Councillor Kerr, it's too early days at the moment. And I'll pass you over to Johnny for your other questions.
So I guess on a national piece as well, our future funding is subject to the outcome of the current spending review, which we're expecting to know in more detail on in late spring 25, so just bolster on that. As far as your question around enforcement and illegal use of roads, we're not an enforcement agency, so we can't comment on that piece of things. What we can do is share any modelling outcomes and that piece on you. So I think the first stage of that can sit with us as far as the detail, and then the second stage is rather for you to pick up with enforcement authorities rather than ourselves.
Yeah, I absolutely get the point about enforcement, understand that, but it's actually understanding the effect that may or may not cause. Yeah, my final question just was in relation to the existing works on the Prince of Wales Bridge. When you alluded to looking at that, does that mean quickening up the existing works, or does it mean postponing works?
So we've postponed the eastbound resurfacing.
Right. And how long for?
That's to be confirmed at the moment, but we'll continue to feed that back through the normal channels.
Thank you very much.
So just to add to that, Councillor Kerr, we will carry out regular inspections of the road surface. Let's say it's delayed at this time as part of the mitigations for the M48, the changes that we're bringing in. but delaying that resurfacing will result in very regular inspections of the road surface, and that will ultimately lead to some patching that will need to be done to maintain the integrity and the safety of the road surface. So it's not just a case of we're delaying it and forgetting it and hoping for the best. It will be closely monitored, and you'll see no doubt as a result of that delay we will need to do some small works during the period, hopefully overnight, in effectively patch works to ensure the integrity and the safety of the road surface.
Is that okay, Tony? You happy with that? Yeah, brilliant. So my go. So it's specifically around the introduction of the ANPR cameras, which I guess are a way of, obviously you're effectively a way of managing it. I wanted to draw to your attention though to, I think it's Morganstown and Cardiff City Council's operations there, where they've managed vehicles over 7.5 tonnes or limited it to vehicles under 7.5 tonnes by operating a similar system. So effectively, any vehicle that goes through there that's over that will face a fine or a penalty. However, if you retrospectively sign up to that, you're kind of off the hook, so to speak. And Cardiff City Council are pretty diligent, as I know from going into bus lanes accidentally on the left-hand side at serving up fines for people who get it wrong. But I just wondered, really, considering I think there've got to be at least 60 plus businesses that are going to be seriously negatively impacted for 18 months. Let's assume it's just 18 months. Whether or not you could accommodate then the vehicles that are larger with the weight limit. I know you mentioned your reluctance then to manage those vehicles, but the fluctuator of the weight of the bridge does vary, doesn't it, depending on a number of things. So, for example, over the winter period, ice, obviously the bridge becomes a lot heavier. You have to then factor that into your mathematics as to how you manage that bridge. So I wondered whether or not we could accommodate vehicles that are directly going into, say, Newhouse Farm Estate. Bearing in mind we've got Asda, which is a very large employer and is a distribution centre for most of South East Wales, whether or not we could accommodate those businesses by allowing them a form of ID so that their vehicles fall within that recognition, number plate recognition.
So I guess on the weight limit, we considered 18-tonne weight restrictions and 22-tonne weight restrictions. The 7.5 tonne was deemed necessary as far as the loading of the bridge goes. We have had lots of queries around exemptions. We don't feel we're in a position at the moment to allow any exemptions. This is a safety decision that's been brought in for safety reasons, and I must stress that. We will continue to engage with the affected operators, but we don't feel we're in a position to bring in any exemptions at this time.
Okay. So just on that, sorry to push you on that. So you say that answer is that you'll continue to engage, but that really doesn't resolve the issue then when you come to implement this, which would be, just remind me quickly, gent, when you look to implement this?
27th of May. Right,
so that's pretty quick, right? So suddenly those businesses down there have got to make adjustments. This is all up in the air. Is there not an opportunity to at least trial it to ease them into this? Because I'm seriously worried, as the local member, you'd expect me to be interested in this, about the long-term employment of those people there and whether or not, and we've seen it before, I'm looking at local councillors where you've had Tesco's suddenly announce that they're moving, and then the fallout from that is being significant, where unions move in, there's discontent, people are worried about their jobs, our in-trays get filled up with people who, wives or husbands that work there, worried about their family income. So the local economy is negatively impacted almost immediately, and the disruption is what I'm saying is you've not really mitigated against the negative impact this is going to have, particularly on Chepstow. Could you just respond to that?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Watts. So we've worked and met with a few businesses and the owners of Newhouse Farm around the impact of these restrictions. They were grateful. Obviously, we had the embargo. They were certainly grateful for the time that we have been able to provide, which is beyond our control. Obviously, we had the embargo, and then we have the weight limit that's coming in on the 27th of May. Whilst there are concerns on the impacts, the owners of the sites were probably less concerned, I think it's fair to say, around the impact to the local economy around Newhouse Farm and what that provides the local economy. Potentially concerned around attracting new business to Newhouse Farm, which in the interest of openness was mentioned, and we're still meeting with them on a regular basis. With regard to providing exemptions to a geographical location such as businesses in Newhouse Farm or specific companies, is where does it stop? Where's the fairness in that? If you've got a small haulage operator working out the other side of Chepstow, you'd say, right, okay, one company's lorries can go across, but others can't, so there'd have to be parameters. And the long and short of it, I'm going to return back to the fairly firm statement, is we need to stop lorries over 7.5 tonnes going on across the bridge as soon as practical. That date is the 27th of May, to protect the bridge from further damage and further weakening of the cables.
Okay. Thank you, gents. Right, so so I've got really helpful people next to me giving me a similar list. So, Councillor Murphy, you're next up on the list. So, welcome, far away.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of bits and pieces occurred to me. The Humber Bridge is the same construction, isn't it? Have you got? I know it's out of your area, but are there problems with that? If there are they similar? Have you learned lessons from it? Perhaps it's a bit newer and it hasn't happened yet. I've got a couple more. Do you want to take them one at a time?
Councillor, yeah, far away. We'll take them all.
You were saying you're going to control the vehicles going over the bridge, or that's one of the options.
Councillor, could you get a little bit further to the microphone? It's just with the typing behind, it's just a little bit difficult to hear.
Yeah, that's right. As you were saying you were going to control or one of the options is you're going to control the vehicles going over the bridge. I assume that then leads to something like Operation Stack. Inevitably there's going to be delays there, and I just wondered what mitigation measures there could be. Obviously, you're going to have a lot more vehicles using the Caldra, and as Steve Garrett said, that's going to impact on Monmouth inevitably. Any consideration to perhaps lengthening the time that the lights are operating on the A40 there to speed the traffic up? That could be one option to look at. And I haven't been up that way for a while, but is the landslip still there on the English side of Monmouth? That's been there a long time, and I just wondered, that's another preventable cause of delays with stuff going back. Those couple of points around the outside of what we're talking about.
So Humber Bridge, to be perfectly honest, not in a position to comment at the moment, but we can provide some more detail on that in due course. Sorry.
Just bear with me. You're right. We also manage the Humber Bridge, Councillor Murphy. We see the structural engineer community work together. So the Humber Bridge will be under the same inspection regime as the M48 Severn Bridge. So we will continue to work with them. Obviously, it's managed by National Highways, so colleagues work together as we work with other bridge operators across the world. And in fact, it was in the United States in the, I think it's mid-1980s, where this cable issue was first detected. So that's the sort of community that we're working with, and we certainly work with our colleagues around the United Kingdom, including those at the Humber Bridge.
As far as control of vehicles around Monmouthshire goes, it's back to the earlier point of It's not National Highways Network, but we will continue to engage with Monmouthshire and Sutra around the impact, but any decisions would be for them rather than us on that. I think that was your third question as well around vehicles. On the A40 comment, was that the Leys Bend work that you were referring to?
I was referring to the landslip that further up that has been there a long time, and I know that you get traffic piled back from that. I just wondered if perhaps that was one of the jobs that could be accelerated.
So that's managed outside of our region, but within National Highways. So we're engaging regularly with them as far as the progress goes. We have weekly meetings with them, and they hold a weekly stakeholder forum that we're looking to join as well, so that affected stakeholders can cover off both the impact of that and our work at the same time. So yeah, lots of engagement on that, and we will continue that in due course.
Just around Councillor Murphy, you mentioned around Operation Stack, which is, as you're aware, the operation in relation to Dover. The mid-term mitigations, you're quite right, is when we're going to look at controlling the flow of lorries in excess of 7.5 tonnes over the Severn Bridge. We've got a dedicated team working on the feasibility of that and including what mitigations are going to be necessary to limit the impact on local traffic. So we've said 12 to 18 months. That's being worked on at pace. Again, not something that's straightforward, particularly on the Chepstow side, with obviously the location of the motorway junction at Chepstow and the start of the structure. But we have a dedicated team working on that, and as that develops, I'm quite happy to come back to Monmouthshire. Well, we meet with them on a regular basis, anyway, on a weekly basis, and I'll ensure that you as members will be kept updated.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, you've been very patient there. You're up. Go for it.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Ian, Jonathan. It's lovely to see you both again. I met with Road Haulage Association and Hicks Logistics, which is now part of Evans Group, 2 weeks ago, and obviously they are deeply concerned about this, and I know that you've been speaking to Road Haulage Association and that there's an upcoming seminar on the 19th. Without wanting to repeat members' comments, Junction 23A is a huge concern to these businesses travelling into Severn Bridge Industrial Estate. That lighting sequence is very fast, and obviously for HGVs and the restarting motion, you might get one lorry through and then it goes around again. So that is so vitally important. That's looked at. Just going on to this midterm project that you're looking at. Obviously, you're looking to provide access to those vehicles over 7.5 tonne when there's a planned closure. Why can we not fast track managing vehicles over sooner than 18 months? And I think this is more for officers. It's vitally important we keep the B4245 clear, try and avoid temporary roadworks, to try and work with National Highways, but also ensure that there's free flow and traffic coming along the B4245. And just on the subject of hours, I know when Holyhead Port was closed or there was works or limited access, there was dispositions for HGV drivers' hours. So I do think that needs to be looked at when vehicles are expected to go around the M50 to get this side of the bridge. So these are all really important things for these hauliers, because as we know, hauliers are working with within small margins. So this could be the difference of having some profit and losing quite a lot of money when having to be redirected round due to an unplanned closure. But I must stress, I understand the importance of what you're doing. It's just a case that I think we all need to work together to ensure businesses feel heard. And just this is going to impact residents as well. We're going to be directing a lot of HGVs through Councillor France's ward, and there's going to be some very unhappy residents along the B4245, and obviously going through Chepstow Town Centre. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dimmock. Yes. We have worked closely with the Road Haulers Association. We have presented to them as well as Logistics UK, and it's really useful for us because they've offered and worked to amplify our comms concerning the restrictions, and also present us with some suggestions for mitigations which are currently under consideration. When it comes to the medium-term mitigation, we're talking about mitigations on a live motorway on the M48. So there's a process that we have to go through. That team that are working on those mitigations, so that's the technological solution to control the movement of HGVs over the M48. We're currently in a feasibility stage. So what needs to be done, how can we do it, and then coming up with the most viable option. Once that feasibility stage is concluded, it will then move forward to design. We have to make sure it's compliant for our standards, which are safety related. Then you're looking at procurement of the technology, and then construction. So we provided a realistic 12 to 18 months to achieve that. When it's incident based on, when we're going to have to shut the Prince of Wales Bridge for overnight works, maintenance works, that will be a resource intensive operation. So that's boots on the ground to allow boots and vehicles on the ground to allow HGVs over the M48 in a controlled manner. So it's a process we've got to go through, same as any major project in the United Kingdom. We're going through feasibility, design, ensure it's safe. It meets our design manual for road and bridges, often referred to as DMRB. And then we have to look at the procurement stage, obviously obtain the hardware, and then go through that construction phase. So that's where the 12 to 18 months comes from.
Okay, thank you.
Have you got any supplementaries?
No, thank you. I just want to thank Ian and Jonathan for attending, and thank you, Armand, for allowing me to attend and ask some questions.
You're very welcome. I'm just going to say this, Louise, I know you're not next up because you're not on my list, and I don't know why you're not on my list.
I'm a visiting councillor.
No, I know you are, but on my list of visiting councillors, you're not on there, and I know you're always keen to speak.
Yeah, sorry, so I did inform Hazel I was coming, or answered the thing to say I was coming, yeah.
But would you just be a little bit more patient, stay with us when I go through the other
fine, thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Just trying to manage expectations here. Sarah, you're next up.
Thank you, Chair. Just to ask, I take it that the vehicles carrying livestock are included in the restrictions, and has there been any analysis on the impact on the farming sector locally?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, there's no exemptions, and there hasn't been an assessment on the impact to the agricultural industry. As soon as the embargo was lifted, that's why we had such an intense stakeholder and customer engagement briefing operation to get this message out as quickly as possible, to allow such businesses to be able to amend logistics, adjust logistics to limit those impacts.
Sorry. Do you want to? Have you got a supplementary there, Sarah?
It was just whether there was any engagement with the NFU or any other representatives of that sector.
So we've not engaged directly with the NFU. Like Ian said, our focus has been on the likes of Logistics UK and the RHA, but also ensuring that the message and the comms is far-reaching enough that organisations like the NFU and associated operators will be aware of the impact, and they have clear lines of communication into us. So we've not proactively done so, but we're very much open to any questions they might have, and they should be aware of where to come with those questions.
No, thanks, Jen. So that's a kind of, thank you. That's a really interesting question. And I'm going to be a bit cheeky here. Does that also include then, I've got to say this, Chepstow Racecourse?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Yeah. All right, brilliant. We've got John Crook, Councillor Crook.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't want to embarrass you, but I understand because of some of my colleagues were concerned that we didn't move very fast. You did not inform Monmouth County Council in the beginning of the restrictions, did you? We were told a little bit later than anticipated. Was that correct?
So Monmouth, we had a 3-stage priority as far as engagement went. So stage 1 was Welsh Government, stage 2 was Monmouth Council, police, MPs and MSs. So the council were informed at the same time as the MPs and MSs. At an officer level, we know your CEO flagged that he wasn't informed. We didn't inform CEOs of Bristol City Council or South Gloss Council. We engaged at the same level with all 3 authorities. Once this was flagged, though, we came to you were at the meeting, so we were quite happy to attend those meetings, and we have since added the leader and the CEO to that engagement.
I didn't want to embarrass you, I just wanted a clarification really for my colleagues, you know.
Yeah.
A couple of other things. It doesn't only affect Councillor Taylor's ward, it also affects our ward, that's Councillor Sandals and Councillor Crook, because we represent Mega, East and Undy. I've noticed that really, and perhaps it's not your domain, that the sequences of the traffic lights from the B4245 and the junction on top of the roundabout going down to the South Distributor Road really needs attention, especially when you close the bridge, because they're sequenced to a very, very much lower volume of traffic. And if they were sequenced in a different way, we wouldn't get quite so much of a tailback going back to Roggett on the B4245. So perhaps you could look at that when you're in discussions with Sutra and so on, because that is absolutely an essential need going forward. The other question I have is that I have a real problem with stacking of vehicles, and you don't seem to have a definite solution at this moment in time, and maybe I'm asking the question too early. But stacking of vehicles from Mega to the Chepstow will be an absolute unbelievable task. Where are you going to stack them? Where are you going to put them? Because that will just increase the issue that we already have. And I just wonder whether you could have some sort of clearer understanding of how you're going to stack vehicles and manage them going forward in 18 months' time.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. I've given some detail. We have a specialist team that are in the early stages of feasibility as to how this is going to be achieved whilst limiting the impact on local roads and local residents and local businesses. As soon as we have that feasibility progresses and we move towards a technological solution that's identified through that feasibility stage prior to us going to design, that will be very well known to yourselves, both at officer level and member level.
Thank you. Councillor Crook, have you got a supplementary or are you satisfied with that? Thank you. Now, some good points though. So we've got Councillor Riley, my colleague.
Thank you, Chair. As you will be, I'm really concerned about how this will impact on local residents. Obviously, safety is paramount, and if the bridge needs to be closed for safety, the bridge needs to be closed for safety. However, there are a number of factors currently, other than the bridge as well, that are impacting on employment within the area, and I am really concerned about about those issues. There are other issues. I don't know. Maybe some things are positive. Maybe will it or won't it impact on house prices? All of these things affect local people. Maybe it'll be good for them. Maybe it won't. I don't know. But do Monmouthshire County Council have their eye on those factors? You know, if people, there has been a lot of house price inflation recently. Is that going to leave people with negative equity if it affects it adversely, or maybe it won't? Do we have our eye on those things? I hear what you're saying about Newhouse Farm feel that it may bring new opportunities. Do we have our eye on that ball too? And I see that Councillor Birch is here and Councillor Murphy. Is it going to affect the development plan? Will it affect the decisions that are currently and may in the very near future impact on planning decisions? So I want to know that we have our eye on all of those balls, because it does affect local people considerably, all of those factors, and many more, I'm sure. Thank you.
So I can't speak on behalf of Monmouthshire County Council as far as impacts or on the specific impacts, but what I can say is we have open and transparent lines of communication between the two organisations, so we are being very clear with what we're doing. When we have the results of the modelling work, we'll share that with Monmouthshire and Sutra and wider. So I can't comment on the impacts and the planning piece on that side, but I can say that the information flow is going both ways.
But to be honest, that's really why I mentioned Councillor Murphy, who's head of planning, and Councillor Birch, to see if all of those things are being considered.
So I think this is what you're trying to do there is ask through me whether or not there may be some knock-on effect from negative economic impact onto the RLDP, right? That's what effectively you're saying.
I am, yes.
So Councillor Murphy isn't here to answer your questions today, but I'm sure he will have a say on it, along with Councillor Rook, who's his deputy, about potentially the negative economic impact this will have. Are there any supplementary questions, Councillor Riley?
No, that's really my main concern, is how it affects local people in knock-on ways, the mitigations from Monmouthshire County Council.
Councillor Riley, I think it's probably just worth bringing up that obviously you have a great deal of commuters using the bridge, impacted on the housing market in and around Chepstow and Monmouthshire. If we don't take this action, as I said, we could jeopardise the future safety of the bridge, which will shut it to all vehicles, which is something that's to be avoided at all costs. And I know it's a rather obvious point, but private light goods vehicles, so vehicles under 7.5 tonne, could continue to use the bridge. And that flow for tourism, commuting, and business trips of less than 7.5 tonnes can continue, including coach and bus services. So I just think it's just important to stress that.
Can I just reiterate what you just said about at all costs? Will that be the case?
I've got to think when I said at all costs.
I know there will be people. So this is it going out live. So just to reiterate, you did say at all costs. So I'm not trying to bury you now, but you've done it yourself.
So we need to keep the bridge. We need to keep the bridge open, and that is why these restrictions are coming in place to protect that deterioration. And obviously the medium and long term solutions are being developed to keep that bridge open. In the long term, into the future, to protect the bridge itself.
Louise, you've been very patient.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask about the financial side, and obviously the second point was about the local impact in my particular area. But on the financial side, it's National Highways that's responsible for the bridges, and therefore the 300 to 600 million. And I just wondered about that in terms of the investigation on where you were going to get the technology from for that particular work. work and how long you thought that that would take, because I did read somewhere about, you know, there's only one bridge that's similar, you know, across the world, and what liaison was being done with them. But I think there's two aspects to the financial side. The first is obviously the 300 to 600 million to repair the main cable. But the second financial aspect is its impact on Monmouthshire roads and, you know, the routes that HGV vehicles take. I mean, my particular ward is covers both sort of urban and rural areas, and you know, obviously I'm concerned about the High Beach roundabout because of the congestion there and the additional A48 traffic at Pulmerrick. I mean, there are already half-hour queues quite often, not just peak times, and we're wanting the Mountain Road land to be used to improve the High Beach roundabout, and the Monmouth member of Senate is waiting for Ken Skates to come out to have a look at the High Beach roundabout. But, I mean, that High Beach roundabout is already a problem, but I'm concerned about the impact on the local roads in Monmouthshire, because obviously very heavy vehicles are going to damage the roads, and also, you know, that we may need more HGV unsuitable route signs, and it's also to make sure that these heavier vehicles are going along suitable routes. If they go along country lanes as a detour, what happens is they can damage the road, and they can also damage the verges. And because Monmouthshire is a very rural county plus urban, then this could have a big impact in local areas in terms of costs. So actually, in your discussions with the English government, the Welsh government and Sustra, I think it's important that you also consider a sort of a compensatory road fund for Monmouthshire, because it will have these impacts. We will have roads that are damaged by not being used to this extra traffic, and I think that that's something that needs to be considered. And I was pleased to hear that you were happy to receive comments from residents who were concerned about the impact and what could be done about the mitigation. But I mean, I don't know where this sort of compensatory road fund could come from, but it will be needed, and I'm not quite sure whether the 12 or 18 months, we could well see that extended, I think. And you know, it is. I mean, I just know from a fact from you know, country roads going through villages, and the A48 Pulmerrick is not really, although it's an A road, isn't suitable for such. It's very narrow in places. Already, street furniture has been knocked by traffic, and it's quite dangerous. So I'm concerned about the free flow of traffic, but also the implications of having these heavier vehicles along potentially unsuitable roads, and even on suitable roads, the damage that this will cause to them, and the need for resurfacing and so forth. Thank you.
So there was a question there somewhere. So thank you, Louise.
Yeah, there was actually two questions really about the a lot to do with the financial side, but also to do with the suitability of roads. Thank you.
But I agree with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. We're assessing, obviously we're at the early stages of looking at the feasibility of how the cables are going to be strengthened on this bridge. There's an estimation by the engineers, as you quite rightly say, is £300 to £600 million to resolve that. We're subject to a spending review. The UK government at this time, we're waiting for the outcome of that and how that looks for our forward investment through our 5-year periods of road investment strategies. So as far as the funding is concerned, we're not in a position to be able to answer that at that time. That's a government decision. Obviously, we've got the one shareholder, the Secretary of State. We work for the government. We're a government-owned company. So they've been fully briefed, and as that develops and the mitigation develops, we'll obviously be assessing the cost of those mitigations and keeping them updated.
Louise, you are entitled to a supplementary.
Yeah, I think obviously you know the need for the High Beach roundabout improvements, but also you know whether or not your study will include this sort of compensatory fund for its impact on local roads as a result of heavy vehicles going along these roads that wouldn't normally go. And I suppose the other point is about to ensure that the hauliers themselves don't go along unsuitable routes and their routes are better planned out, so that they're not damaging roads that aren't suitable for HGV vehicles of that weight. Thank you.
So I think it's worth stressing the formal diversion will always be the M48 and the M4, so we won't formally be diverting traffic along lanes and the rat running element. It will remain that M4, M48 corridor. I think it comes back to that clear lines of communication between ourselves and Monmouthshire and Sutra. So we need to be as open and transparent as I think and continue to do so. So we are aware of the impact of that and Monmouthshire can make informed decisions. If HGVs are using viable routes, they're using viable routes. That comes down to a sort of secondary piece, doesn't it, around enforcement that you referenced to, which would sit with Monmouthshire, but we need to ensure that we are sharing information and being as clear as we possibly can so that they can continue to make those informed decisions.
Thank you for those. Louise, are you happy with that so far? I mean, this is an ongoing debate, so I'm assuming that you are. I've got to move on.
Yeah, I think it was really to make it clear that it's not just the cost of the main cables, but it's also the mitigation financial cost that might be needed for the local road network. Basically, that's the point I was making, so that you do two determinations and two separate investigations, because although England is responsible for it, it has an impact for Wales, and it also has an impact for the English and Welsh economy. Thank you.
No, thank you, Louise. Angela, again, you've been very patient. You're at your next time.
Sorry, I could see Marion's name before mine. Did I miss that when I nipped out for my comfort break today?
He's had one question, so...
Oh, right, okay.
So you look disappointed, Marion. You just have to be patient.
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation. Basically, I just want to put one last push for mitigation around the mega roundabout, okay? As obviously board members, the cost to the economy must be phenomenal every time traffic backs up all the way from Chepstow, because it's gridlocked from there all the way back to Caldicot. Nobody can get out. And it's probably very simplistic. I am no engineer, but signalisation, as Deb alluded to and said, it's we've asked for that. If that could be put in there, it would just be so popular for a start-off. People would actually say, oh, they listen to us, because this is what we're hearing day in, day out about the fact that, you can look on Facebook and go, oh, I can't go to work today. I can't go to my doctor's appointment. I can't get to school. I can't get to, perhaps you've got flights booked this minute. You are absolutely stuck. There is no way out. So please, in all your meetings, if you can push that, every one of the ward members knows how popular it would be and how it would absolutely mitigate all that constant flow of traffic. I mean, I'd like to do a graphic just showing if a man stood out there, like with one of those stop signs, even that would have an effect immediately. It would let some of the people out from, the B4245. So that is just, please have that right at the front of your...
Councillor Sandals, please be assured that is one of our priorities. We recognise that as the main choke point or impact point. That's why we're having weekly meetings with the right people at Sutra and Monmouthshire. So it is a priority.
Thank you. So we're coming back now to we've opened up the floor to our backbenchers. Miriam, you're next on the list now, so you've been very patient.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for taking my extra question that's only come about since the meeting. I think you mentioned earlier sort of the M49, M4 junction improvements linking to the local road network. Presumably this is to service the Severn Beach industrial estate there and improve HG movement into Wales from there. Would this, to be specific, what would this entail? So would it be improvements on the roundabout itself to connect into the A403, or would it be, I travel that road quite a lot, I noticed that the Amazon junction on the Severn Beach junction is closed. It is existing. It's there. It's current. But would it just mean opening that junction there? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Howells. So that junction was built by National Highways completed in 2020, I believe. So that was completed. But we're not responsible for linking it to the local road network, so that falls under South Gloucestershire. South Gloucestershire, one of our partners we work with closely, they've had significant land acquisition and legal challenges in creating those link roads, which goes into the north side of Avonmouth Industrial Estate and very close, as you said, to the Severn Beach Industrial Estate. That junction has been put into place to get lorries out of Avonmouth onto the M49, onto the M4 more efficiently. And alleviating the pressure at the St Andrews roundabouts, which are down at the bottom of the A403, very, very close to the Avonmouth Junction 18. So we work closely with South Gloucester Council. Our work there has been complete for some years. And they are now in a position, they've overcome those hurdles as quickly as practicable, and work is due to commence, if not already commenced, within the next week or so on that junction to link it to the local road network with an estimated completion date of 12 months.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Rook, finally.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of your long-term plan, surely you must include a third crossing from Lydney across to Purton. Surely that needs to be considered, because the longevity of the Severn Bridge is a finite thing, and another crossing would be beneficial to be in place before that one closes.
I think that's a really interesting question. Slightly out of our brief, because obviously this is for county, but I'm happy to explore that.
Councillor Rook, I'm not aware of any plans by HM government at this time to build a third crossing, but I'll leave it to you guys. I can't canvass my own employer, but yeah, I'm aware of no plans whatsoever. And don't forget, any such crossing would require linking to the existing road network, and that's a significant requires significant investment.
I'm surprised you've not heard of it, because it's in the 50-year plan for Gloucester City Council. So how you haven't heard of it, I'm gobsmacked.
I'm not saying I haven't heard of it. I'm not aware of any plans by HM government to commit to that crossing.
Absolutely great question, Dale. I'm going to open the floor up. Are there any community councillors that are in this meeting that wish to speak or communicate to either Ian or Jonathan? No, nothing? I feel like I'm waiting for a final bid now, you know, after a long auction or something. Right, I think that's pretty much it. It's just for me to summarise. I guess really, first of all, you can see the people that we've got in this committee are nice, friendly, good people, very diligent and passionately care about their community. So, broadly speaking, they were shocked, as I was, by the decision and the announcement. And I appreciate that you've embargoed that information, but it did come as a huge shock to us as councillors to really, and I just want to go back to this point really, which is probably enters into Phil and Dale's brief about our ambitions for this local authority. There are 9,000 jobs in Avonmouth, pretty much up to South Gloucestershire. That's an economic hotspot. Those people commute. And I've said this publicly before. So really had an ambition for Monmouthshire, which was to then piggyback on that and develop Sevenside. I've talked to Jonathan about this before. I know I have. And what we worry about and what we feel is that suddenly disappeared. Those opportunities now have slipped away from our hands. And that's a hard thing to take. So I think you'll have to appreciate really that we will continue to be on your case, so to speak, and I mean that in a friendly kind of way, to ensure that we do everything we can to mitigate against these 18 months. Now, you did say 18 months. I remember last time when you closed the bridge, and Jonathan's right, it was one single lane, and it was horrific. I think I can't remember but how long it went on for, but it certainly overlapped. So I'm not confident this won't go beyond the 18 months. I am really worried about it. But this committee's, this is always a continual piece of work. So what I'm going to suggest is that we give it probably 6 months, and we arrange for this committee to sit again, and we get an update then, if I may, and ask you to come along again and give us a broader briefing. It would be unfair of me to ignore the fact that we've got Catherine, who's been very patient. She's the cabinet member. She holds all the cards here, and there's some pretty bad cards, if I'm honest with you. So I'm going to ask you to just summarise what she and what the cabinet intend to do to mitigate and continue putting pressure on you to ensure that this normality resumes at some point. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I wish I did hold a full deck of cards. I hold a few, or rather, I should say we hold a few. And I think it's been a really useful session this morning, not least to highlight the complexity of the interaction between the different bodies who do act on transport and highways issues. Particularly when you're a border county. It's been a really, really useful session. I think to summarise for myself as cabinet member, the big things that jump out, and there's a lot of really important detail as well. I think the main impact of this shocking news about the bridge, shocking. I know we were aware for a long time that there have been issues, but it's still shocking because of the suddenness of the hammer falling, if you like, not least for local businesses. I think what it's done is it's really emphasised and added weight it's emphasised the problems we were already facing. It's made them worse. It will exacerbate them, but it also adds weight to the arguments that we've been making as a county council to Welsh Government and to national government, and within our Cardiff Capital Region groups about the needs of this area, and more particularly the south of the county and the congestion problems. And this includes specifically, and we will go on lobbying hard and we will push even harder with this additional information. This includes specifically fulfilment of the Burns prospectus on rail and on the M48 road link. It includes specifically action to relieve congestion at High Beach. And it includes specifically now a much clearer indication of the importance of better traffic management, particularly at the mega roundabout. But I was also interested in what Councillor Crook was saying about sequencing of traffic lights. That part of it all involves liaison with Sutra, which we already do, but it all adds weight and it all adds intelligence and understanding. I think on more major issues where I feel like I might hold one card, and that's really trying to influence these really huge issues that affect us nationally. But it's so obvious in Monmouthshire, the mismatch between the size and frequency of vehicles and our old roads and towns and villages. And it feels, when you're actually dealing with highways issues on a weekly basis, and obviously officers are dealing with it on a daily basis, this mismatch becomes so obvious. And all the mitigating actions we take are almost really just sort of playing at the edges of this really huge issue. And the other issue, absolutely major issue, which Councillor Taylor vocalised very well, which was the need for modal shift. This quantity of huge HGVs going into small rural areas, not just down the motorways, but also over bridges that are not designed for them, really emphasises the importance of rail investment on the freight side as well as on the passenger side. And then for the impacts for local residents and our ability to move around, to move to work, etc., really the importance, and this is something we can do at local level and we keep doing, is to invest as much as we can in improving public transport, improving active travel and making it easier for modal shift and in terms of individuals. But so those are the really big issues, but we'll focus in and really work hard on the issues that we can affect. And working with Sutra and trying to influence, easier for us to influence Welsh Government than it is for national government, obviously, but we will try and do both. So yeah, my head is really, it's a huge issue, and I think this meeting this morning has been incredibly helpful for highlighting the issues from the perspective of all the different wards. So it's been brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, okay, that's lovely. Listen, we're wrapping this up now. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming along. You didn't have to come along. I know you offered, but it's been a really interesting, as Catherine said, really interesting debate. We're going to try and reschedule this. Before you go, Phil, I can see you just shuffling off there quietly. Before you go, I think really the intention is to come back to this in 6 months' time. So maybe, Phil, you could come back and then probably give us, in your official capacity as Chair of Planning, maybe not Dale because he's potentially conflicted to roles, give us a report of how you see things going forward. That would be welcome. Bring Catherine back, maybe the Cabinet member as well, maybe bring in Paul Griffiths, and maybe ask these gentlemen to come back as well at the same time. And I'm suggesting, and maybe it's something for this committee to give consideration to, that we also bring in Sutra, whoever they are, wherever they are. They're out there somewhere, right? I believe they exist. So they could come in and then we could actually see them, which would be, just actually seeing them would be interesting, wouldn't it? So thank you all for coming along. Have a safe journey home. Assume that you can get past the traffic. Yeah. Cheers. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so just as far as this, so we're moving on to the minutes of the previous meeting on the 7th of April 2025. So can we have a Dale and thank you, gentlemen. Yeah. We're almost finished. If you want to just have a quick debrief outside, that's fine. If you want to go straight away, that's fine. You wait outside. Yes, just literally minutes. So minutes of the previous meeting.
I'd like to move those those minutes.
Yeah. Have we got a seconder? Thank you. Thank you very much. And then we've got Public Services Committee Forward Work Programme and Action List. Hazel.
Yeah, it's just for noting, Chair, but as you'll see, we've got the Health Board coming along for future scrutiny, and just to remind members that efforts continue to liaise with the Police and Crime Commissioner to set a date for them to come and talk to us about the CSP's priorities and the Police and Crime Justice Plan. So those efforts continue, Chair.
Thank you. All right. Any questions about that? No? No? Any member? Tony? No? You've got a hand up. Is that a historic?
I have. It's just about future item, Chair.
Yeah, okay.
Is it appropriate to bring that in now?
Yeah.
So you and I were exchanging emails and not, perhaps I didn't explain myself very well in relation to some confusion amongst members and members of the public with regards to the enforcement of 20 mphs or just national speed limits in relation to Go Safe and the police. And I was wondering whether it might be appropriate to ask representatives of the Gwent Police or the Go Safe team to come in and talk about exactly what they are doing in the county, because it seems to be a bit sporadic. But on one hand, but on the other hand, there is also a science as to where speed vans, etc., and community speed watches fit in.
Yeah, I hear what you say. I'm not sure whether or not, so there's an overlap here. So if you look at the other work programmes, I'm just worried about we may be straying into territory that may replicate others. However, I don't think there's any harm in asking them. but I can't guarantee that it will come because, as we mentioned last time, we've had some issues there to do with inviting the commissioner, which, ideally we could stack those two things up on the same item, really, if that kind of makes sense, or can just put those two things together, really, Tony. But so what I'm prepared to say is, will we invite them and see what happens? Yeah. What do you say?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll liaise my end. Would you like me to speak to the Commissioner, because I sit on the Police and Crime Commissioner board, and say, excuse me,
yeah,
invited?
Is that the consensus of this meeting? We allow Tony to go completely guerrilla and then and do what he needs to do at all costs to get the Commissioner in here, because that would be great, brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much.
For general.
Yeah. Okay, happy with that. Any other questions? Jill? No? You look like you've got a question there. I'm going to wrap this up anyway. So it's got next on the agenda is number 7, Council and Cabinet Work Programme. Noted. And the date of the next meeting will be on the 7th of July 2025. Thank you all for your time and patience, and thank you for Deborah as well for her time, and all the officers, Hazel included. Have a safe journey home. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. It's nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon.